All right, well, let's try that
right.
again.
Yeah.
Greetings, salutations. Episode 49, we're approaching 50. Thank you so much for your patience with technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Les is under the weather today, so he had to call in the show. But we'll do our best, and we've got some great guests tonight. We just wanted to give one shout out to our great friends at Reboot Repair. Now that we have sound,
Right.
Your local choice for IT solutions, computer service, computer repairs, cell service, cell phone repair. They do it all, ladies and gentlemen, and they also have accessories, keyboards. They have everything that you could think of in their bricks and mortar at 155 Erie Street. And as always, we thank them so much for their great work for us and serving the community for just over a year now. So
Absolutely. Can't thank those guys enough. And Cam came through in a crunch again tonight. So, oh man, I just can't say enough about these guys. They have helped out so many people in the community, and including us and the podcast. So thanks, Cam. Thanks, Dylan.
yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to put a bigger focus a bit on something that's really caught a lot of traction with our podcast, and that's the 50th anniversary of the Stratford Warriors / Culletons celebration of a half a century. And with that, we've decided that we wanted to reach out and see if some alumni wanted to come on, and I'll let you do the introductions, but I'm pretty excited for this one.
Yeah, so we've been getting a lot of texts ever since we put it out there on social media who was coming, and so to my right is Dan Forget, the pride of New Liskeard, Ontario, and to his right is Paul Barton, 1/3 of the famous kid line that played for 3 years with the Culletons. And guys, thank you for coming on so much.
Yeah,
thank you
thanks for
being
your time
here. Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
no problem. Dan, we'll kind of start with you. You grew up in New Liskeard, and you ended up playing juvenile hockey, I'm told, in North Bay. And just kind of walk us through, how the heck did you make your way to Stratford?
So juvenile hockey in the north back then, so that's the late 70s, is similar to the junior B, but not maybe as not as many good players in the league, but definitely some real good hockey. And back then, the champion of the leagues, whatever league you're in, because you had play downs and everything, they could pick up 4 players and add to their roster before they went up against Quebec or whoever was next. So North Bay won our league, and I was lucky enough to be selected, as well as Tim Holt, actually, and we joined North Bay for the playoffs. And then with that happening, the All-Ontario was in Toronto, and so North Bay played in Toronto, and at that time, you know, the odd team looks at the northern guys, and the Streetsville Derbies, which I didn't know at the time, but was the big rivalry with Stratford.
Right.
They contacted us, and myself and Tim, and brought us down to check out their place, and basically not quite offer us a spot, but looked pretty good for us to be going to Streetsville, and just by chance, it's quite funny now because good friends with Barney and Chiz and the rest of the crew, and Stratford Culletons was the opposition that night, and I probably wouldn't remember it so well, but it was a night where I thought, well, Streetsville is a real good team, because I think it was 9-0 or something.
Yeah,
They
10-0, game 3.
So I was at that game, and I remembered, I remember today thinking that I knew Brian McGinnis, and he was a smooth skating defenseman, still is probably.
And he was playing with Barney at the time during the game.
Correct. And Brian had played with me the year earlier in New Liskeard.
Okay.
And so I remember Brian looking as smooth as ever, and he had a partner that was pretty smooth, and that was Ross Yancey.
Not too bad.
You know, it just goes in a circle, and I end up playing with Ross Yancey a couple of years later in university.
Because Guy saw you in the stands, did he not? Like when he was playing with Barney? Because they're in the middle. This is the second go around. Your first time, though, Barney, of playing in the finals. But Stratford had beat the Derbies the year before to win it all. And so now here you guys are playing against the Derbies, round 2. They have you and Tim Holt in town, whining and dining them. Brian McGinnis sees you from the ice and thinks, what the hell is he doing here? And then talk to Denny? Like, how did that all come to be?
My memory on that is that Denny or someone asked Brian who are those guys, and so Brian was kind enough, I guess, to have a few good words, and it just grew from there. And then I do know that Denny phoned up to the recreation director, get a little idea who these guys were, and I guess whether we should be on the ice or in jail, one of the two, you know. And so the phone rang. Stratford phoned and offered us a card and told us they'd have jobs for us, which was big because we just finished high school.
Okay.
Grade 12, and it was so that was big too. They said, hey, we're gonna have a job for you. We have a spot for you, and you don't have to race down here and see the place. We got a spot for you.
Perfect.
So that's what happened.
Because Denny had contacts all over the place, right, Barney? Like him and Joan would obviously go up and scout up north, but they had people, whether it was like Ron Mason and, you know, his son Terry, you know, down at Bowling Green, and just had people always looking. And so then obviously you were in his backyard. You, Ken Chisholm, Scott Skinner, the kid line had just got done winning back-to-back All-Ontarios, one in Bantam, one in Midget. And so then you come to training camp in August of 78. Tell us how that all came to be. You've got guys like John Wilson and all these guys that have just come off a championship, and the team had lost a bunch of people. I was reading before. They had lost Frank Barth, Gary Robinson, Tim Uniacke, and then tough guys, Dave DeGlass and Pat Kelly, and goalies Tom Rustin and Randy Sherman. Like, that is a huge loss for a championship team. And then you guys roll in and obviously kept the train moving. Like, how did that all happen when you came into camp?
Yeah, I know that team that won before us. They lost a lot of guys that year. Like you say, I think they lost 9 or 10 guys,
Yeah.
right? Key players. So there was maybe 6 or 7 left over from that team. So they had a lot of holes to fill.
Right.
And back in those days, you couldn't have too many imports.
Okay.
It was monitored pretty closely. But if I remember right, I think 7 or 8 guys from our midget team made that
Wow.
team, which is incredible, right?
Right.
Just and for that team, for us to win that year with that many new players, right, rookies, was quite an accomplishment.
For
right?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at returnees: John Wilson, Jim Benn, Dan McPherson, Ross Yancey, Rod Belhar, Steve Tolton, and Steve Johnson. Those were the only guys that returned.
Yeah.
And then you've got newbies. You guys picked up Al Reeder, who was a junior B vet, who had played for last place Cambridge. He played, and then obviously the three of you, Chiz and Skins. You guys had 144 points that year. Your line, like, it was for 3 rookies. Like, that is unbelievable. Like, you guys just rolled right into a position, and then they had to replace the goalies. They had to replace, Tom Rustin and Randy Sherman. So who did they go out and get? Terry Wickham. Only had 5 shutouts that year. 2.9 goals against, tops in the league. And then Rick Petrie, who another local boy who was able to make the team. So you guys, like, were just a powerhouse, and it's just incredible that you guys picked off.
Well, they're still telling the stories decades later, right? About that time and place with the franchise. So there's all these. And I think that's the exciting part of the celebration of 50 years about this, this junior program in this city. And, you can go back as far as you want, but it was some pretty, you guys are a pretty big deal. It was a lot of aura around those teams, and what an exciting time to be a hockey fan in Stratford.
Absolutely. Like, I remember, I was telling you guys before we got on air, like, I remember watching Terry Wickham, and that's who I wanted to be in road hockey. Like, and we've talked with Tim and guys on other, and I'm sure you were the same. Like, you just wanted to be a Culleton. growing up, like, you didn't even think about the Toronto Maple Leafs or anything like that. You wanted to be a Cullet, and you wanted
Razor,
to be...
I never did think about the Leafs, so I don't know. I don't know
And
what
you
you're
never
talking
will.
about. Sorry,
I hear
I hear what you're saying.
I hear you, and it's just cool that guys like yourself, make a few moments to come in on the show, because, God, man, we could talk hockey all night. Like, Waterloo was the only team to beat you guys in the regular season, and they did that twice, and then you guys get into the playoffs. But like we were talking before air, they were 8-point series. They weren't 4 out of 7s for whatever reason at that time.
Well, that's what the Canada Cup was too in '72. It was a point series, right? If you go back that far. But something that I wanted to just bring up, Dan. So you started with the Derbies in Streetsville.
I never played for them.
Oh, you didn't?
They recruited me, and that's how I got to Stratford.
Okay.
That they happened out of
Okay, so I liked your description of playing up north. It looked a little bit different than it did down here. So can you just kind of give us an idea when you come how old were you when you came down?
I was 19.
18, 19.
Yeah.
Coming down to Stratford, I'm sure the barn was full on Friday nights and all that type of stuff. Man, what a time to be playing some good hockey.
Yeah, we learned real quick that Friday night was, a place to be was in Stratford, and coincidental, New Liskeard had a good juvenile system where we also we were Friday night New Liskeard as well.
Yeah.
And the place to be was at our rink. So everything was very similar as far as equipment, how you got treated, and everything. What was the big difference for us, for Tim and myself, was all of a sudden there wasn't, one big line and this and that. There was a lot of good players out there on the ice, and it was pretty obvious real quick. And then the dressing room itself, they organized it where we were sitting by number, which was pretty cool at the time. You get to know the different guys, and you could just see Barney's side was always a loud side over there. I was sitting beside Chiz and Terry Manning, and we were a lot quieter on our side. But it was just a well-run operation. The executive, Denny knew what he was talking about when you got talking about U.S. hockey, the college hockey, and Jack Nairn had our respect big time. Like, even if we had a tough Friday night, which didn't happen very often, and it was usually our own fault. When we got skated the next morning, it was pretty hard to complain because the guy that was beating you down the ice was Jack Nairn. So,
wow.
During the skates. So it was a really good place to play, and I found there was no jealousy on the team.
Right.
On who was doing well, who wasn't. Again, Barney was, probably the top centerman, and Terry Manning was a tremendous little player that could play, and Roddy Beelhartz was a good captain. I mean, you just follow him because he's going to play well, and it was a great spot. And I think also through the NCAA, I learned quickly then that you're competing against your 15 buddies because the schools were in the rink looking at you.
Right. Yeah, because like even back then, like that, Denny started the run of scouts coming from NCAA. The OHL scouts, knew their own. But the NCAA kind of started realizing that, holy moly, like Stratford's got some good players. Now, was Terry, I don't know if you know if Terry Flanagan was down at Bowling Green at that time in the 70s, or did that happen in the 80s?
That was pre him being at Bowling Green, yeah, because UNH was definitely the pipeline.
It was the pipeline.
For the Stratford guys, right?
Yeah, because at one time it was like you, Chiz, Dan, Ross,
and Frankie Barth.
Right? Yeah, the five of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
we actually played my first year freshman. We played. We opened up against Bowling Green, but they coordinated with Stratford that we came from Bowling Green and played an exhibition game.
Okay. At the Almond?
At the Almond.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that right? Eh?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It was a big crowd there, and it was. It was kind of strange playing against the guys who you had played with, right?
Yeah, and then obviously Bowling Green became, a huge pipeline when Terry went there, and because in my era, a few years later in the mid '80s, that's where everybody ended up going. Emerson and Blake and Mark Potvin and
Rando.
Dave Randerson. He won a national championship with them.
Yeah.
And he was kind of one of the first ones to go to BG, and it's just interesting. And now you've got Dennis Williams, local boy, who coached Team Canada, the World Juniors, to a gold medal. Now he's coaching Bowling Green, so he's running the show there.
Yeah.
So
And they still have those big feelers out for the U.S. college route for this hockey team. They've got a couple players already committed to those schools, so that's huge.
no, for sure.
And I just quick circle around with you, Dan, and being a long way from home. It sounded like, with you being at your age, say 18, 19, that's a long way from home. Probably first time alone. It sounds like you're pretty comfortable with the culture of the Culletons.
Oh yeah, it was an easy transition, and
Yeah.
Again, had no dreams of doing much at that point. Finished high school. The job at Crowler Furniture was probably as important as anything because I got a paycheck.
My dad
Absolutely.
worked there,
Oh, is that
Dave
right?
Ray.
So
Yeah.
got the paycheck there and got $10 on a Friday night if I didn't get a 10-minute misconduct along the way. So it was. I think Tim Holt owed money by the end of the year to the office there. But so it was sort of I was stepping away from New Liskeard period, right? That's
Yeah, of course.
That was
Right.
really happening. So
Yeah.
So and it was just a good spot, and it just happened quick for me to. Lucky enough to move on from here as well, and that's all part of, Barney and Chiz already going to New Hampshire, and
Yeah.
and Ross being down there. I didn't know Ross at the time, but it made that transition easy as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ross went first, I believe, to UNH.
Barthy
did,
was there.
Barthy.
Frank,
And then Ross went the following year.
Then Ross,
Dan
then
went the
Dan,
following year. Then
and
me
then you and
Chiz.
Chiz.
Yeah.
Right.
And Terry Flanagan played there first, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Terry's
Terry
an alumni.
Flanagan was University of New Hampshire.
Yes.
Okay.
He played. I think their team made it to the Final Four. Terry's team.
He might have been on one of those. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. How did he make his way to BG? Any idea how that happened, or wonder because he was coaching by
probably
then? Yeah.
networking or something.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's a pretty tight. Not that I know.
No.
I'm just thinking though. It's probably a pretty tight network where you might know a person or there's
Like
lots of
Jerry
stuff going
York
on.
must have known him or known somebody that knew him because that's usually how the coaching
usually.
happens,
Yeah.
right? You bring your own guys along when you get a job, but I just remember when we went down there in '85, we had an annual trip and meeting Terry and taking us through the dressing rooms and. It was just that college atmosphere, like, holy moly, like you guys must have just, had your eyes wide open. Like I often laugh, Chiz would tell a story about, yours and his first training camp. So that would have been your second year. And Barney shows up in a cowl heating Rotary Y shirt or something. And
Why wouldn't you?
right?
Why wouldn't
And you guys had to run like a 4-minute mile or I forget what the number was, but you had to do the jog in a certain time or else you had to keep doing it. You didn't get your equipment until you hit that number or something, Chiz said. And
Yeah.
so I always got a kick out of that. But he said Barney showed up in a ripped cowl heating Rotary Y
Yeah,
shirt.
it wasn't much of a fashion fashion.
But Barney, you were a good runner, so you had no trouble.
Oh
getting
yeah,
equipment.
Right?
Yeah,
I got the last set of equipment the year I went.
Oh,
'cause
geez.
I'd broken my ankle here, so I wasn't in
In the
greatest,
playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, and so even in September down in New Hampshire, I wasn't really 100% at that point. I don't think, and never much of a runner, but I couldn't do the run that they were asking me to do, and tried, and then finally one of the vets got me there on a Saturday morning with a coach and a time clock, and he ran with me, and we got her done.
Nice.
But I got some very old equipment my first year up in New Hampshire. Our equipment in Stratford was better than the equipment
Here,
there.
rookie. Here's the leftovers,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because really back then, like you look at old photos like of the Oilers and stuff, like Gretzky just had caps sewn to his shoulder,
Sure, yeah.
It was
the
like-
suspenders. Like it was just totally different
Yeah.
than it is now. But
The one thing that was a big adjustment too is when we got to New Hampshire, we had to wear the full cage,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
And we
right.
never even worn, right? We just
Right.
had a mouth guard and
Right.
So
right.
that was a big
So that
adjustment.
changes your whole peripheral and
Yeah,
everything.
you got the chin strap, right? So when you look down, right, it took a long
So that's
time.
interesting.
Right.
That's interesting
used to
information
that.
too, to know that back in junior B and in the late 70s, early 80s, there was open faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because they had the big cat eye screens, I remember, like the ones that goalies were able to wear, but they ended up changing it because I think the end of a blade could actually fit through, if I'm not mistaken, one of the eyes. But
The other thing that messed me up too was in our second year, all of a sudden we were wearing Cooperalls.
Yeah.
oh,
And if
jeez.
no one's worn Cooperalls, I found them very restrictive, right? Because
Yeah.
they were tight to the body, and I liked a
Yeah.
really loose pant,
Right.
that you could
Well, and
move
like
around
not
in.
being too much, but probably even in the crotch, like when you go for your glide, you feel the restriction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just seemed to be tight, and it just
And that was the well, that would have been your like New Hampshire's kind of uniform. That's what you wear, and
Yeah.
there's really no
Yeah.
option,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's no other plan
Yeah.
B. Like it's wear it or not. Now, was the whole league doing that, or was it just New Hampshire?
Remember Providence had it? I don't think everyone did. So I could be wrong in that. So I think it was just typical someone
Right.
selling or not selling, but giving to the.
It was like the
school.
Flyers and
Yeah.
the Hartford Whalers that
Yeah.
thought it was a great idea until it wasn't.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because I remember Cooper was selling. Oh, it's safer, and but like you said, it was restrictive. A buddy of mine, when we were playing minor hockey, he got it, and I said, "What do you think of it?" And he goes, "Well," "it looks all right," but he said the same thing as you. He says, "I honestly don't really like it, but I wouldn't tell my parents that because they just shelled out a lot of money for
Yeah.
it." But totally different.
So go ahead.
And I remember too that the sticks were changing back then, right? There was the wood, and then all of a sudden, right, was it aluminum, or I don't know what it was, but
We only use wood. As far as I remember.
graphite
Or did you get into Titan, Barney? Were you into the Titan ones?
we're into the Titans, yeah.
So-
Okay.
They were a
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
different,
yeah.
but-
So the fiberglass through the blade of the stick and stuff like that.
Yeah, just it was changing, right?
The
stick-
Finland. Finstar.
Finstar.
Remember playing road hockey with one of those?
Yeah, it lasts forever in 2 days.
When I was playing minor hockey, Sherwood had come out with the old double warp stick. I don't know if you remember those.
No.
But I was a lefty, so the front of it was a left curve, and the back of the stick was a right
Oh,
curve.
geez.
Right? So it was, right? I
Wow.
used that for a year, right? And
Holy
it was
moly.
interesting.
That is
So
interesting.
Barney, we've heard lots of stories about growing up in Stratford, playing for the team down at the Ulm, and we've heard Razor's antics and Taylor and a few of the others. But have you ever dodged out on a invoice at a restaurant in town? I know Mike McLeod has. wearing the Culleton crest on the blazer.
Oh, jeez. We did that. We did that one time for our second year with Blake and Pat Murray and everyone. We were all the veterans, and we went out to the old. Remember Mother's Pizza Parlor? And so then we took all the rookies out to Mother's Pizza, and we said, "Guys, we've got some gifts for you out in the car." We said, "We're just gonna tell the maitre d' that we're gonna be back, right?" And so the 18-year-old girl at the front door, we said to her, it's a rookie party. They're picking up the tab. And so then Murray and Blake and all of us, we all waved to them, and they waved to us, and we walk out and we rap on the door or on the window, and and we're laughing at them. Well, then a couple of them kind of put two and two together, but we ended up coming back in.
Well, that's nice.
We're choking
because
their
Reuter's
chain.
story is they went and wined and dined at the Limelight with their blazers on and the Culleton crest, and thought they'd dodge out on the.
So they knew who they were, right? Like, that's ridiculous.
So it was a big time, like in junior B, being hometown boy, and of course, with your portfolio too there, Dan. But some things remain the same, and it was probably a great time to be young and playing good hockey and understanding that you've got a lot of opportunities ahead of you. I don't think too much has changed even after 40, 50 years. It was probably still the same type of feeling playing in front of the hometown crowd, would you say?
Oh yeah, the team is definitely well supported. Right back then, we would get 750 to 1,000 fans a game, and in those playoff series, I remember the rink being full. Right,
Yeah.
Like standing room only.
standing room only.
And this was all before iPhones and Netflix
God, it
and
was
all of that,
before.
right?
Way before.
And
Everything.
so like that was your entertainment. Like on a Friday night, it was like, hey, I'll see you at the game.
Yeah.
And like we've talked on previous podcasts where the advanced ticket sales on Wednesday nights, like during the practices, they'd be lined up all the way to Ontario Street, like up to New Orleans Pizza. And it was just what happened. And so, when you see them on their playoff runs, like, last year and the year before, it's great to see the advanced ticket sales and stuff because they don't have it online, right? Where you can do it all electronically. Like even, you go to the Knights games and the Ranger games in Kitchener, you can do it off your phone. Stratford's still old school where you got to physically or know somebody to get the paper tickets for you. And it's different. Like
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And when I know a lot of Razor stories, so we can always touch on that. But would you guys also notice like 750, 1,000 in the playoffs? Forget it; it'd be a sellout. But say you headed down to Waterloo or Listowel or Elmira and all those, like I don't think they were getting the same audiences. Would that be fair to say, even in when your era when you played, or were they getting good crowds too? Was it a more popular, night out, if you
I
will?
used to find they were rowdy places to be in. They were,
Yeah.
whoever was there was doing a lot of yelling at us. I can
Yeah.
tell you that. And Elmira had a small rink. I remember their rink. Cambridge was a small rink, or Hesper, I think they called them,
Yeah.
Barney back then.
Yeah.
And that, so, and I was trying to think about the other day, actually, after mentioning this, to do this, and I don't even remember who all was in our league, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Elmira and Waterloo.
Well, in your
were the-
defense, it was a
were
few
the-
years
were the-
ago, but
were the- yeah.
that's fine too.
40-something years ago,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like
Well,
it's
yeah.
Listowel was a newer team.
really
Yeah.
And New Hamburg was a newer team.
the New
Okay.
Hamburg
The
Hans,
Hans, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had high boards there. That's all I remember.
Right. Yeah.
Owen Sound Barney had high boards.
Yeah.
First time I jumped on the ice, it took forever to get down, put it that way.
Well, I'll never forget, even in your era, the Razor, watching the Owen Sound Grays with those orange jerseys, and man,
Right.
they were a tough bunch.
Yeah.
Like you guys usually had your hands full.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it really hurt them, like when they got the OHL team, because that'd be like Stratford trying to support two teams, right? Like I remember playing them in exhibition games, and there'd be like 10 people there. Going to Kitchener, like playing at the old auditorium,
Yeah.
there'd be like 15 people there, and then about 40 Stratford fans. Like it was like night and day, and playing in the old odd, like it was quiet.
Yeah.
Like, even after a goal, you didn't have to
You
worry
hear
about the
3 people clapping.
Well, I remember when you're saying that, when Owen Sound made the jump to Junior A, I remember my dad was so pissed. He's like, Stratford can do that. Like, why are they giving it to Owen Sound? Stratford
Right.
can support a Junior A team.
Yeah.
And he was, not knowing the whole story and
Right.
the fundamentals behind it, but it was just interesting. And to this day, they're such a successful organization up
Yeah.
there with lots of great history already and successes. So it's a good thing, and it's the St. Mary's of the OHL.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
The way I look at it,
yeah.
such a small town.
It really is. But like, going into, since we're talking, about your team, the two of you played together in 78, 79. You had a record of 33 wins, 4 losses, and 5 ties. That's back still when, you guys had ties. They didn't want to have to pay for extra ice time and do anything like that before shootouts. Like you had a returning cast of Terry Wickham, Rick Petrie, Bale Hartz, Max Maschke, Brian McGinnis, Jim Ben, Steve Johnson, Dave Otto, the kid line. You guys had lost Ben and Bale Hartz though mid-season, and Ben, I guess, for the rest of the year, he had a knee injury, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, that year as well. Tell us about the Ontario Winter Games in Kingston. You guys ended up going there and did quite well. And how did that all come to be? Like, where you guys ended up was your team like in future years? I remember the year I played in '85. They did like an all-star team from the Midwest and the Western and the other leagues that would compete. But you guys actually, your team went to the Ontario Winter Games in Kingston. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Do you remember the story? I think it would have been called Western Junior B, and the first place team, like we were in first place at a certain time of the year, so we got to play against Sarnia because they had Mr. Hunter was the coach.
Okay.
Dale's father, I believe.
Maybe
Okay.
Strathroy.
You think it's Strathroy?
Yeah.
I thought it was Sarnia Petrolia.
Petrolia. Yeah.
Petrolia Jets.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because their goalie was a kid from Kirkland Lake, so I knew him.
Okay.
And so we played them in a either 1 game or 2 game type thing, and that's who
okay.
we played against. I think they had a young Mark Hunter was on the team then for them.
Is
Okay.
that right, eh?
Yeah, so we won that, and then we went to Kingston, and did we lose in the finals? Barn?
Streetsville was in that.
They were.
Yeah,
Burlington.
and we lost to Burlington.
Bramley.
Bramley. There you
Lost
go.
to Bramley 3-2 in
Yeah.
the gold medal game.
Yeah.
You won 3 of 4 games, but obviously a success. Just for whatever reason, ran into a hot goalie or a good team from Bramley, because that would have been the Metro League, would it not? Was it did they call it the Metro League at that time, or?
I think it was all Junior B. Like back
Okay.
then, there was like 60 Junior B teams or 64 Junior B teams.
Okay.
Right, you didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the provincial Junior A,
The
and
tier
all
2
that.
and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Right,
yeah.
right.
It was all more Junior B focused.
Yeah. Because
Right.
like back in the early '80s, like I remember in mid '80s, they had the 5 leagues. They had the Midwest, the Western, the Metro, which was all the Toronto teams, the Golden Horseshoe, and then I forget what the other one was, but I think there was 5 of them at that
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah. And the thing about it was with the absence of like a junior A tier 2, junior B was where it was at. I mean, you were getting so like in even all the way up to the mid 80s
Yeah.
to later on, you're getting all these people drafted out of junior B and not just to a college, to NHL, to all sorts of different opportunities. So, I mean, there was a ton of talent
Yeah.
in that league all over the place.
And did you guys find that you were talking to mostly NCAA scouts? Like, was there many OHL scouts or any of those guys talking to you guys? Or
I was too old, so definitely not me as far as
Right.
OHL. Barney, your line would have been definitely been sniffing around.
Yeah,
you,
we,
I'm
like
sure.
our whole line got drafted, right?
okay,
Yeah. I think
different teams.
different teams. Scott was Peterborough.
Okay,
Ken, he might have been. I don't remember.
Okay,
He
and-
might have been I know I went to Brantford.
Brantford. Okay,
Yeah.
Were they the Alexanders back
Yeah.
then? Were they?
Yeah, yeah. But I know, like they would call, right? The junior A coaches would call.
Okay,
And either I would get the phone or my dad would pick up the phone and say, "No, Paul's going to play."
New Hampshire.
Just shut the door.
Yeah,
NCAA.
And
Fair
he,
enough.
And he would say, or I would say, don't draft him, right? Because
Right.
you're just wasting a pick. But-
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they would hope. Now, did they offer school packages back then, or was that later?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I never
yeah,
got
yeah.
that far with them.
No, I don't think
right?
that
Yeah.
was. TU mentioned that in the one episode that
that's
we
right,
had, that
yeah.
it was introduced later on, and they named a player, and I can't remember, and I apologize to you, but he did explain all that, but it was
Right.
more later on,
Right.
because they were losing so many to
NCAA.
To NCAA.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, look at the talent pool that they had in Junior B.
Oh.
There was no other alternatives. Like, that's where you were playing, and I think that's the big pivot that you see to the game nowadays, where those players like a Carson Harmer, he started here at 16. Well, he's off in the O because he's that good.
Right.
And other examples, obviously, that we've talked about over our time, but it was a lot different, eh?
Yeah, it was
Back
and,
then.
I think that now with the TV and internet, local kids, Ontario kids, get to watch the OHL on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Where really it wasn't like that, right? Unless your parents took you, you didn't see it, and so there was. I think it's harder to walk up to a 16-year-old and say, "Hey, if you had your choice of going to Bowling Green or London Knights, they're
That's
going to
a
pick
tough-
the London
Huge.
Knights probably,
Exactly.
because of what's on TV.
Well,
all the
even
time.
Tim was explaining his example when he was on this podcast, and he was indicating, and I can't speak for him, but basically, the OHL was a tougher road, right? But he knew he wanted to play as high as he could, and he felt the OHL was his best option,
right.
So it just all depends on what you're looking for,
Yeah, I
I
think
guess,
those
Yeah.
right?
decisions are made every day by parents and by
Right.
kids. And you got different good and bad, right?
Right.
You go here, you might be traded 2 or 3 times. You go there, you got 4 years in one spot.
Yeah.
So it's a tough decision, but I think again with the TV and how, and even there's much TV, not much hockey on TV every night. They're always talking about this kid played there, this
Yeah.
kid played there.
Well, and it's interesting too, and I know probably a lot of us, even the listeners or viewers, can relate. Bobby Orr, they interviewed him about these parents that are moving their kids all over the place, feeling that they need to maybe be in the GTA or wherever it is that they feel that they need to be, and Bobby Orr said, if your player is that good, they will find them.
Yeah.
With all the technology we have, with everything like from communication to everything that's at our fingertips for scouts, they will find them. So I think that's pretty cool, because I know that's strengthened a lot of more remote places that maybe want to stay closer to home at a younger age.
Yeah. Like I remember reading in Dean Robinson's book about when Nelson Emerson came to Stratford, and he said he was like 150 pounds soaking wet, and I forget who had recommended. I think Nelson's mom or something.
He was from Watford,
Ontario, and
Yeah.
then I think Nelson's mom had reached out to Denny and said, "My son's pretty good," and blah blah blah. Denny says, "Okay, bring him down." And he said, I remember opening up the door and like, here's this little guy. And in my head, I didn't want to disrespect his mom, but in his head, he's thinking like, are you serious? Well, then it was funny because a year later he calls Jerry York at Bowling Green and says, I got this kid that, you should take a look at. And he said, same thing.
Yeah.
First time he sees Emmer and he's going, Denny, like, are you serious? Like, this kid's like a little pipsqueak, and just like watch him skate and stick handle.
Funny story that I have firsthand about Nelson Emerson at his first camp in Stratford was my brother Chris was at the camp. They said they pulled him aside in about 17 minutes to sign him. He was just a bullet all over the ice, and immaculate, everything. He was just a complete player at his age to be on his way to great things, and obviously had a great NHL career, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget my first Culleton game, as long as we're talking about it. It was a matinee at 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon, probably 85.
Okay.
And Stratford beat Cambridge 16-0.
Yeah.
And Emerson had 5 goals. And I'll never forget, he took a slap shot from center ice to dump it in to make a line change. It hit the boards, and in the meanwhile, the goalie was trying to get out to try to get it, and it hit the boards. It was that quick.
Yeah.
I was about 8 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, those memories that you have about this, this great organization that continues to evolve. But, I think that's probably some of the great reasons why we have guys like you on the podcast to just kind of go back and get an idea for people who maybe aren't, aware of how rich this organization is.
Well, and hockey's such a small community. Like, we've been throwing out different names that, you had mentioned Mo Mantha. You were playing against him in the finals there with Streetsville.
Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Penguins.
Pittsburgh and Winnipeg. Like, I was looking up his stats, and, he'd been around a lot of teams, a lot of years. And tell us a little bit. I don't know how much you can remember because, like I said, it's a few years ago. But I was doing some research and was laughing about how when you guys on your championship run ran into Oshawa, who was coached by Mike Keenan, and in Game 3 in Stratford, they were getting penalties called against them, and you guys went up a few goals. And the referee, Pollock, he did the choke signal to him, and tell us what happened there. Like he ends up getting kicked out of the game or something. But he must have been a fiery coach when you guys were playing Oshawa. Do you remember?
I don't remember a whole lot other than we put them out 4 straight and they weren't too good. Right?
That's all you
So
need to know.
Yeah.
That's
all
probably
you
why
need
he
to
was a
know.
little bit frustrated.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Dan, you had mentioned a little bit about your broken ankle. You guys beat Waterloo 4-0 in the first round, 4-0 against Elmira to win the league, and then in the third round you run into Windsor, but then you get a broken ankle, and Tim Holt, your left winger, he gets a cracked ankle.
Yeah.
Like, tell us what happened there, because that's a funny story. Like with your billets and what you and Tim did afterwards.
Yeah, Tim got hurt, and I can't remember exactly what series, if it was Waterloo but I felt like we were about a week apart, and I think he took a shot off the leg and had a fractured ankle cast on, etc. About a week later or 2 weeks later, down in Elmira, I broke my ankle, and but it was a little bit worse. It was broke and ligament issues. So
And you had a pin put in.
yeah,
it.
I had a pin put in here in Stratford. They sent me to the Stratford hospital there from Elmira, and so we're living in a home, but the club thought it'd be a good idea to move us if we're going to be hanging around for a little bit till we went home up north. They put us in Bill and Shirley Irwin were, I think,
Okay.
one executive, or Bill was, and
Yep.
Shirley was a volunteer, and so we had their basement, and so we played a little bit of crib in the morning, and we both sort of were on disability from trailer furniture.
Right.
We both were, so we were still getting a check. And so we were playing a little bit of crib and stuff, and time went on, and Tim was quite a funny guy, and he was struggling near the end of the year, and anyways, so part of that story is he has this walking cast on. I'm not sure how many weeks into it, but it was maybe about 3 weeks into a 4-week plan, and he's walking in the basement going, I don't think there's anything wrong with me. And he's bouncing around, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move or anything. I was always in pain. But so, anyways, he got the idea that I'm going to take this cast off. So sure enough, he got out the knives and he took the cast off. Once he took the cast off, he decided that there's nothing wrong with him, and it must be someone on the coaching staff doesn't want him to play anymore, and they put a cast on. So we talked each other into going down to the Almond Arena, and it was during the day, and the rink's empty except for the workers. And somehow we got into the dressing room. And I don't know whether we talked to someone and we got him in, but anyways, Tim put his skates on and went out on the ice. And I'm standing there with crutches watching him. It wasn't very long that Deanie Flanagan came in the door, so someone phoned him. And he was
Probably Bill Allman probably phoned and said, "You better get down
he
here.
wasn't
One of your
very-
guys
he wasn't
is out
very-
on the
yeah,
ice."
He wasn't very happy with us, I can tell you that. So off Tim came, but it was so funny because, like I said, Tim's a character. And he was strutting around like the Slapshot brothers, on
Hanson
TV,
brothers.
the Hanson
The
brothers there,
Hansons.
strutting around like there's nothing wrong with me. And anyways, he did end up dressing in the final series against Windsor, but he never played.
Okay.
He wasn't healthy enough to play.
Right. Yeah, and you guys ended up losing to Windsor, and then
yeah.
that was the end of it.
Yeah.
So then you go on to UNH.
Yeah.
Barney comes back for one last year. Like, did they say to you, "We don't need you yet," and come the following year, or you guys just had one more year left of eligibility to play junior? So
Yeah, I think it was like they wanted another year of seasoning, right?
Right.
Because if you can get a more older developed
Sure,
player, right,
fair.
it's to their advantage. And back then there was grade 13, so
right.
it was
Yeah.
good completing grade 13.
Right.
So
Yeah, so then you come back. You guys have another good year, 36, 6, and 5. You end up in first. Barely. You guys ended up beating Waterloo by 1 point. You guys ended up in first. But then once again, you ran into injuries. Max Maschke, torn knee ligament in December. Dean Williams cracked fibula. He was out a couple of months. Kenny Robinson separated his shoulder in game 2 against Waterloo.
So, sorry, just quick, Paul, like with all these injuries, is it just the ebbs and flows of the game, Was it more heavy hitting? Was it those are a lot of major injuries.
Yeah.
Like you're talking fibulas and ankles and all that stuff. Or was it just the ebbs and flows of the season? I guess?
I think it's just kind of
Yeah.
luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
Or
That- that's-
unlock.
Well, yeah. But
Much different hockey then than now.
Yeah.
Like there was, if you look at the penalty minutes, we all had, 50 to 100 penalty minutes. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
the game was played tougher,
Yeah.
rougher, crazier, maybe
Yeah.
a way to say it. So injuries could happen, I think, a little bit easier than
But the equipment wasn't as vicious. Like, we've all seen Don Cherry, like when the hard elbow pads came out and he's with McLean on coach's corner smacking him. Like,
and
he's
what
like,
a
"Folks,"
what a valuable
right?
episode.
Exactly.
Right? Like it's nuts.
Like
There's
you
no
imagine,
need for that.
Like you imagine getting hit like when McDavid hit that guy. First he elbowed him, but then he went and cross-checked that, and that's a whole other conversation, right? Like he's going to be suspended, but it
As
was
he should
totally
be. Dirty player.
100, right? But yeah, like the equipment was different. The respect was there. Like the sticks weren't up. Like if you got a stick in the face, it was purely accidental. Like now with all the protection that all these kids have, they have that false sense of security that, you can skate around with your stick up. You can hit kids, harder and stuff. Like, there was I'm sure there were a few boarding penalties, but not, the way that it was there for a while. Like the respect just kind of seemed to go out of the game.
But even, and you guys have probably seen it too, like at home, like sometimes you'll click on ESPN Classics and you'll see, Leafs and St. Louis Blues from 1982. And
Right.
it's like, this is incredible to watch.
Yeah.
Because at the time, it was incredible hockey.
Right.
But like now, they go 1,000 miles an hour.
Right.
But at the time, with the technology, with the knowledge of the game, with the evolution of the game, in 82, they were 40 years more evolved than, those days of, being at that time.
It really is different, and I find it when I the odd time watch those old clips from the 80s and 90s. There's no advertising on the boards, right? Like
Yeah.
it is weird.
And no music.
Yeah,
Yeah, no kidding.
right. And but yeah, like getting back to that season, your last year, Barney. I remember talking with Mike Saul about the accident when it happened, because I had played Tuesday, Thursday mornings with the fire and police, going out and playing shinny with them, about Roy Russell from the Siskins. He was the rookie of the year. 14 seconds into Game 5 in Stratford, he had his throat slashed by one of his own teammates. Accidentally, must have been turning or something, and it cuts his throat open.
Yeah.
Was that in Stratford?
That was in Stratford.
It was. Okay. And I was talking to Salty, and he was telling me the story. So he was a firefighter at the time. And he said, I was at the station. He would have worked with your dad at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, Razor, I just happened to be reading about emergency tracheotomies. And he said that he was just reading it in a book, right? Like, they were in between calls and stuff. And when that happened to Roy Russell, he said, I just jumped into action. He said, I had no idea what I was doing. I had read about it once in a book. And I guess he took like a Bic pen, and the kid's throat was slashed, and he's choking on his own blood. And so Salty saved his life. He put a pen in the guy's throat until the EMS came, and the Siskins, and like they Salty got award after award from the city and from the Siskins, and like I could only imagine, like it would have been,
It was horrific.
oh my God, it would have been like Clint Malarchuk, like remember when that happened, but it was an unfortunate incident, but
Just to full circle here, Les is watching at home and under the weather, but he's chiming in, which is great. It was a Metro Junior B Hockey League. It went from 1956 to 1989.
okay,
It was a Preston Raiders. So thanks for that, Les. And, that's just a little piece of the trio that's missing tonight that has those little piece of information. So thanks so much. What do you got there,
Yeah.
Razor?
Well, I was
We're
just,
going on almost an hour.
I know it was.
Can I tell you the first time I
absolutely.
heard
You
about
can
the
do
kid-
whatever
the kid
you
line?
want.
I got to tell you the first time I heard about the kid line. So
Okay.
we come down for our first skate, and there's a somebody out there dressed in an Adidas sweat top,
Right.
bottom, and hockey gloves, and
This is training camp.
This is training camp. So and I'll never forget, and I don't know who I was talking to, but I said, I don't know who that guy is, but he looks like a hockey player. Maybe he can be on my wing. And whoever it was said to me, that's Ken Chisholm, and he's on the kid line. You'll never play with him. And 2 years later, we proved it wrong. Barney and Chiz and I played a game or two together in
Nice.
New Hampshire. So that was a big thrill for me, to be honest with you, to
Oh,
play with these two
yeah.
guys.
For
And
sure.
It only lasted a couple games, but we did play together.
Yeah. Tell us about like when you were at UNH. Like what was that like? Was it a small town that the university was in? Like were you guys the show? Obviously, like how big of a population was the school? Do you remember?
With the students in,
Yeah.
it was about 10,000 students.
Okay, so it's-
our rink, Barney, probably sat 3,500, something like that, and it was full. Like
Right.
There'd be lineup, like you're talking about lineups. There was lineups when we'd walk in pregame.
Okay.
In your suit or whatever, the students were lined up because you'd buy an athletic pass, and so the first 2,500 students got in, and then the rest were season ticket holders or
Right.
whatever. So it was an old barn. It was a loud barn, and so that was the atmosphere we played.
How
in.
did they treat the Canadian boys down there?
Yeah, they really liked
They
us.
knew you were there for business, I'm sure.
Yeah, they
playing,
really liked
playing
us,
the way
yeah.
you do. Yeah.
They were only allowed, what, 5 Canadians a year?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a real set rule, but maybe the
that's-
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a good place to be, and it was great that Barney and Chiz came down and joined me and Ross and Barthy down there, and it was sort of like they were my big brother when I came here. Well, we were a little bit their big brother.
Well,
when
the
they-
For
thing,
sure.
and you guys had no idea that would come full circle down in New Hampshire, right? Like, I think that's the beauty of this game and the opportunities that it provides. To think that you came down here from the north, all this stuff you knew, obviously, all the players that went there, and you went there, and there was familiarity, right?
Yeah, and then, talking about the Flanagans finding people, just, I guess them finding myself and Tim, whatever, up in New Liskard, Brian McGinnis out of Englehart, then you get that feed from those people, wherever they moved to next. I think Brian stayed in Stratford, I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
I went home after university. I went up to New Liskard, and so then I got involved in minor hockey. The Flanagans sat in my living room a number of times up in New Liskard, looking for hockey
Right.
players. And
Right.
the Flaxey boys came down, and Shane Stewart.
Yeah.
And we got to say, how great a place it was for us to come, in that one winter that we were here. Tim was here 2 winters, but I was here 1, and that just leads on to the next phone call and the next phone call.
I
For
think
sure.
that comes with the full network of how the Flanagans built their realm of connection is gentlemen like yourself, former players, meanwhile, going all over the place for scouting and stuff like that. Even to this day, we talked to Jason Clark, the director of hockey operations for the Warriors. They've got people out there all the time, and they still do. So it's a good blueprint to give yourself an opportunity to compete in the league, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then after you guys were done playing college, you end up going back to New Liskard. Barney comes to town, gets a job with Scotiabank, and becomes the top mortgage broker in Stratford. So if you need a mortgage, go see Barney.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you guys have a son each, and then Jason ends up playing 3 years for the Siskins, and then he makes his way over to Stratford. Barney's boy Andrew plays 3 years in Stratford.
And I got to coach Andrew.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
Well, because you ended up coaching, what was it, like 5 years, I
5
think
years.
it was?
I was involved for about 5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I think from 07 to
07 or 12. Yeah.
I was involved. Phil was the head coach, and
Right.
it
And
was-
Ross
Yeah,
Yancey.
Ross Yancey, yeah. And that Ross was the one who talked to me first, and
Right.
that's how I came up for the 5 years, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and not too many people like Joe Hishin comes to mind. very few people have a son that actually ends up playing on the team like, the dad did. And so it's just great when you can, see something like that. And, like we've had Jason Clark on a few times, and the team, like, they lost probably 8 or 9 guys last year. Again.
Yes.
And here they are. Well, up until Saturday night, they were in second place, and now they're in third place. But it is so tight.
It's crazy tight.
Isn't it?
There's 6 teams with
It
him.
is
like
so
3 or
fun
4
to watch.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I know that they lost Saturday night. Obviously, you and I were there. We'll get into that. But they played a great game.
They did.
They played
the effort
well.
was there from everybody.
Yes.
And them picking up Jonas Schmidt, especially now with Louis hurt. The captain, Cole Lewis, has got a sore shoulder, but upper body injury, I should say.
Well, there you go, Razor. Jeez.
But
I'm teasing.
he's. We were talking to him, and I said, buddy, we don't need you as much now. We need you come playoff
Get
time.
better.
And he will. He's going to be fine.
And they're going to be in the playoffs. They just don't know who they're going to play. And talking to Cole rinkside there on Saturday night, there's always this understanding of what it means to play for that team. And I don't know if he necessarily wanted to talk a whole lot to me, but he really took time. I said, hey, Cole, how are you? How's the shoulder? Told me a couple things. And, they're just nice young gentlemen.
Yeah.
And I know Parsy and I know Clarkey, that they instill that along, obviously, with Slits and Knechtel and Williams and all those guys. It's a culture that stands true to time.
Yeah.
And they still run it the same as they always have.
Well, because we had talked on previous podcasts, and I'm sure you guys felt it too. Like you come out of the room after a Friday night game, and you got all these kids, at center ice, want your autograph, and you're going, holy moly! Like, I really didn't think I was that big of a deal. And then you've got all these kids growing up in Stratford, like I had said before, where you want to be a Cullen. If I could ever play on that team, I could die and go to heaven. My life is complete. But just to be able to sign your name on a kid's program, and we had joked about, in previous years about the Indian head, like with the scalps and that were on the program.
Crazy times in Stratford.
It was crazy, so I can see, how that was offside.
Let's just say different times.
Different times, right? You had Archie Bunker on TV saying things you could never say today.
Yeah, and Sanford and Son.
Oh, my God, right?
But,
yeah,
Paul, I don't know if you remember or not, but the kid line, and thanks Les again. He may as well be here. He's working me all this great information. The kid line, you guys distributed 399 points in your junior B career. Congrats. It's fantastic.
That's amazing.
399 points.
And 144 was the rookie year.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
5th place all time.
Yeah.
So,
So Jeff and I aren't part of that committee. I don't know how much you guys are aware, but there's 5 of them that are coming up with the top 50 junior B players of all time in Stratford. And it's got to be an unbelievable task for those guys. Yeah. John Kastner, I believe, is spearheading the whole thing. And then you've got Jason Clark, Les,
Steve
Rice, and Wendell Archer.
Yeah.
And so the 5 of them, God bless them, have volunteered their time to go through. I guess they were each given a decade, 75 to 85, 85 to, all the way up to today. And they've had to come up with the top 50 players of all time. And so it's not black and white, because you've got guys like yourself, Barney, that played here for 3 years, where you can look at it statistically and go, okay, yay or nay. But then you get a guy like Rob Blake, who was injured for some of the season and only played 1 year, but he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not black and white.
So, I don't know what the word is, but it's diluted because there's so many different examples,
right,
of so many different things of categories. And, we asked Les about it, and he goes, it's damn near impossible. Like, just
100.
how do you categorize it? It's different hockey. It's different everything.
Yeah.
So we know for a fact that they've done a great job. It's been a lot to put together, but they have. And, that's just part of the lead up with you guys being here. That they're going to be able to release that on our podcast. It's not going to be the 50th.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Next week is going to be our 50th.
Yeah.
And
we're going to have, what is it? A petting zoo, juggling, and magic magicians. And
right. We've got Mr. Tasaltis selling popcorn down at Tom
Down at the
Patterson.
river,
yeah. But no, it's been interesting. We've had so many different people on. We I don't know if you guys are aware, but on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, some local guys, a band called Small Town Strip Club, they ended up pushing their song onto Paul Bissonnette and Ryan Whitney. They liked their song, so for a while, that was their lead-in intro song into their podcast. Well, then they ended up getting another band, because they wanted to promote a whole bunch of different bands. They didn't just want to focus on them. And so then we're like, Jeff cuts the hair for a couple of the guys in the band.
Yeah.
So their music is on the beginning and during our intermissions. We had them on a podcast.
Yeah.
Cool.
And they're talking, because they're hockey fans too, right?
Yeah.
And
Right
local
on.
boys. And we've been blessed with a
Little
whole
bit of
bunch
everything.
of different
Yeah,
people
little bit of
coming in
everything.
here. And
but
Ian Denemy,
Ian Denemy
who wrote the book. I don't know.
wrote the book on the Stratford Arena.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
the 100-year anniversary on
and
that.
you can kind of giggle about it now, but he self-financed it, so it was a lot of money that
Yeah.
he put up to do it. Did 300 hardcovers, and he's on here going like, I just hope. And of course we can understand, but they
Right.
blew through those like it was
Right.
free, right? So
Yeah.
but that's an hour.
It was a significant sum too that he
Yeah, yeah.
bankrolled.
Yeah.
And he's got 2 young kids living in Toronto.
Yeah.
He was, and I said, buddy, even though I don't have any skin in the game, I'll be shocked if these aren't
Yeah.
sold all by Christmas. They were gone.
Yeah, they were gone, and
People are asking us, can we get some more? But I guess the printing company that he used, the costs have gone up so much. So
Yeah.
he said, you just got to get a paperback if
Yeah.
you want it on
Yeah.
Amazon. But just great different guests,
Well,
different ideas, and
Yeah.
we're
needless to say, the assistant general manager for the St. Louis Blues, not too shabby.
right. Yeah.
And
and he wants to come
you know
back
what?
on again.
And a crowd favorite, a listener favorite.
Yeah.
Brian Hawley.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
People, will be going through our week. God, Hawley, he's got a lot to say. I heard about that.
He gets pretty excited
Yeah.
on some topics. So Brian's involved doing color commentary for the Stratford Fighting Irish, the semi-pro team. Then he does it when the General isn't available with
Okay.
Les on the
He was
Junior
in
B
St. Mary's
broadcast.
there on Saturday night.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. They had the 3 of them on,
Yeah.
and then he comes on our show. We're like, this guy is
Yeah.
so good, you
Yeah.
know. And then we ended up bringing him on the show regularly. But
So, well-
guys, do you have any final words or any stories or animation for the viewers? We just really appreciate you guys.
The one thing I remember is just in Stratford, if we weren't doing well between periods, Jack Nairn would come in the door, right, and the garbage can was in the middle of the room, and there was 3 stalls, right. I know Holty was
Holty
one
was
of
one
them.
of them.
He's in the corner, and number 9,
Frank McCarthy.
Frank McCarthy, and
Towards
number
the
11,
trainer's room?
Yes.
towards the trainer's room.
Okay.
And Jack, this would happen 4 or 5 times a year. He would come in and he would hoof the barrel. So the barrel was full of orange peels
Right.
and tape.
Yeah.
And all this stuff would end up in Holty, right? And we'd be all there, right? Jack's like wicked mad, but we're all there like snickering away, right? Holdy's picking the orange peels off himself.
jeez. And he wouldn't
And
apologize.
Holdy didn't like stuff like that, right?
Right.
He was like a kind of like a clean freak.
Right.
And it was beautiful.
Before it was cool, he had sanitizer.
Exactly.
Oh, love it.
Before every game, someone would have to read off this list that Jack had, what you could do and not do. Back check to the middle or whatever.
Right.
He had a bunch of them.
There was 10 of them.
There was 10 of them.
Okay.
So, and we all got our turn to go. And when it was Barney's turn, he didn't need the paper. He just said it right out loud. I'll never forget that. We laughed. That Barney had memorized.
Photographic
The rest of us,
memory,
we had to-
right?
we
I had to do something at school, right?
Well, I remember you said, I said, Barney, what did you take at UNH? And I think you said geography.
Yeah.
And then you came home and became the #1 mortgage agent at Scotiabank. So good for you, man. I appreciate both of you guys coming on.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
And it's a part of the celebration of, like I say, and not to be redundant, but it's such a celebration of such a great tradition of combining athletics with education.
Yeah. 100.
And we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming in tonight, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having us. Thank you.
and please listen to the reveal show. It's Monday, February 10th. Yeah. Now it's going to be a little bit earlier because John Kastner has to get to a 7:00 council meeting. So I think it's actually going to start about 3:30.
Yeah.
So we're budgeting about 3 hours for the show.
And we'll
Yeah,
keep
we'll
you
definitely,
posted.
we'll definitely be announcing as things progress. So, guys, thanks again for coming, and you're always welcome on the Armchair Chirpers. And if you're
And
ever
for no experience, great job.
right,
guys.
yeah,
you did great.
thanks for coming on, boys.
Yeah. All right.
Ready?
And with that being said, we will return.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wayward mind, lovesick blind. Why do I climb these heights for you? Twisted muse always gets my shit confused. What's a man have to prove? Do I have to walk the night for you? Every mountain I've climbed, there's a valley low. For every highway I ride, there's a rocky road.
All right. Well, we saw Barney and Dan off, and you know what, guys?
Oh my God.
They did well for their first podcast
did.
because as soon as the microphones went off, they're like, "We should have said."
Jay Miller having Lou Lamorello in a headlock
Yeah.
at Providence. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
Barney, why didn't you tell that story?
Yeah.
So
So
I'm sure
we'll-
they were nervous.
We'll have them back, and you know what? They did a great job
They
for
did.
literally having no idea
Yeah.
about a podcast.
Yeah, they
So-
did so well, and like it, and I tried warning both of them. I said, like, you think that it's easy, but then you're sitting down in the chair, and even though it's just four guys, like in the hockey dressing room, having a couple of Millie Lights, it's kind of nerve wracking.
Oh, well, it is, and you
know?
explained your first experience when you came into with
Mm-hmm.
Reuter and stuff like that, and I think once kind of the stories start flowing. You know, I saw Dan, you know, he was a little fidgety in that, and no disrespect,
Yeah.
but, you know, all of a sudden a story was told and this
Right.
and that. And so it's all good news when you come on. I know Founts, there's a reason you haven't been invited back, but just
He
kidding.
was the same way. He was like,
Yeah.
I was nervous
Oh,
the first
he's-
few minutes.
He's a
right?
beauty, and you know I'm
He
joking,
is.
Founts. We love you.
Founts.
We love you, bud.
Love him.
So we usually have a little printout of our sponsors, but Razor had obviously had a lot to prepare for tonight. So we're just going to kind of abbreviatedly go through our great sponsors and generous sponsors. So thank you in advance for all of your support. We're going to look at Janet Lange, real estate broker. Coined the phrase putting the real in real estate. She's been in business over 20 years and looking forward to having any conversations you would want to have in real estate, may it be residential or commercial. And, we really appreciate her being on board. Janet Lange, real estate.
Yes, Brighter Vision, Counseling and Psychology, there to help people that may need somebody to talk to. Sherry and Kelly and their great support team are always willing to take on new patients. Brighter Vision, Counseling and Psychology.
Yeah, very much an opportunity to heal and grow.
Yeah.
We they're one of our favorites, to be honest. So it's all good news. And apparently, our good friends at Joe's Diner, the official breakfast, dinner, and lunch diner of the Armchair Chirpers,
Right.
man. Well, we don't have the notes. It's tough. Go in and try their number 4 Perth County,
Yes.
world famous, owned by the
Yes.
Myers family, Blaine and Julie. They do a great job with Dan and Rebecca. 2 locations in St. Mary's and Stratford.
Yes, Reboot Repair. We can't say enough about Cam and Dylan. These guys are absolute rock stars. Reboot Repair in the Plaza on Erie and Wellington
155.
Street.
155
right?
Erie Street. Absolutely. And our good friends Kathy McCann and Dennis Culleton at SBS Metals, they do custom fabrication. They invite you to go to their social media pages because they show great examples of what they do. They do custom fabrication. They do all sorts of different projects and maintenance. They have a full schedule of all the attributes that they have, and we're really excited and always feeling encouraged to have them on board SBS Metals.
Yes, and Domino's Pizza. Patrick and his team do an amazing job. 2 locations on Ontario and Huron Street. So thank you to Domino's Pizza.
Absolutely. And last but not least, actually we have 2 more. Bentley's Food, Wine, Beer, Beds. 99 Ontario Street. Nothing else to be said.
Right?
And the Urban Barber. Thank you to Stratford and surrounding area for another great 2024. Looking forward to serving you in the new year. And 3 barbers by appointment only. We invite you to go online through our social media channels or Google. That will give you a book now option, and it will show you every opportunity that we would have in our scheduling to accommodate the service that you need. Look forward to seeing you soon. The Urban Barber.
All right. Well, let's get into the Warriors weekend that they just went through. They got 2 out of a possible 4 points. They opened it up Friday night with a huge 3-1 win over Waterloo. Kipfer got them on the board in the first period with assists from Brown and Campbell. And then Curtin got them going as well with Green and Long, and both of those goals were on the power play. So that's huge, getting 2 power play goals in the first period, especially against a tough team like Waterloo. And then it was 2-1 all the way into the third period, and then Kipfer got an empty netter with a minute left in the game. That was unassisted. And Furlong had a strong night, stopping 26 of 27 shots, and so they're feeling pretty good about themselves after Friday night.
Well, and I like how Les explained some things. Is one of those things is where, you know, with all the literally hundreds of contests they've had against the Siskins,
Right.
it's always important. You know that
Yes.
in your
Yes.
career too. It's just nice to get that tidy win. And like you said, Furlong had a great game.
Yep.
And you know, the complete team effort, from what I understand, is what it was.
Yep.
It's great to see. And I know that if Les was here, he'd be able to collaborate a little bit more. But we're doing our best, Les. So
Well, we were at the game. Both you and I, and Les was broadcasting Saturday night at the Pyramid Center. Wow, that was
well, and thank you, Chris Chessel, for hosting Razor and I
Yeah.
before the game and the pregame party. And it was a party. It was like
it
2
was good.
beers and
It was good. I was joking with one of his boys. His youngest son, Rhett,
Rhett.
came with us to the game, so he's the official horn blower.
Do you know what I love though, Razor? So we're sitting there at Chess's kitchen. Rhett, you know he's a passionate,
Oh yeah,
probably the biggest Lincoln fan.
Yeah.
Comes up, I said, "Hey, Rhett, how you doing?" Lincoln 6'2". Not even a hello. He was ready.
oh yeah, he was
And
pumped.
he goes, "Write it down."
He was dialed in.
And I thought, that makes me nervous
Oh,
because he's pretty dialed. Like he
yeah.
knows what's going on, and I love the fact of his compete
Yes.
and the passion for his team and the beauty of the St. Mary's Lincolns this year. But anyways,
Yeah, that was
continue on.
hilarious.
Yeah, it was
well,
fantastic.
no, he introduces us to I think it's his oldest boy, and
Brock.
yeah, and he had a buddy over.
second oldest.
Second, okay.
Yeah.
And so it was funny because as we were putting our boots on to go to the game, I said to him, "Yeah, I was on StubHub before the game, and yeah, the nosebleeds are going for $250." And he looks at me and he goes, "Are you talking about like at the Bell Center tonight?" And I'm like, "No, at the Pyramid Center." And he rolls his eyes, and his buddy and him are laughing. But it was just
Oh, it
good
was good.
comedy.
It was a lot of fun. And Chess, thanks so much for your
Yeah.
hosting us before the game. What a chilly night in St. Mary's.
Oh my God.
Judas Priest.
Chilly night everywhere. Greg Barkley, I can't wait to hear about
Yeah,
all the
no kidding, eh? The old Bills
all the
win.
whiskeys that you had down in Buffalo to stay warm. I'm sure there wasn't too many beers drank, but Saturday night at the Pyramid Center, the Warriors didn't get the result that they were looking for, losing 4-1 to St. Mary's, but you and I had talked about it. I thought they deserved better than they got, but this game is ruthless, and it doesn't always go the way that you hoped or the way that you played. Like, we all agreed that Stratford outplayed St. Mary's for most of the first period.
Yeah.
They only had 7 shots, and one of the guys
I saw that.
on Facebook is
Challenging
like,
you.
dominating. They only had 7 shots. What about the second and third period with St. Mary's? And I'm like, well, buddy, it was only 7-6.
Yeah, take it easy,
first,
Tiger.
right?
Yeah.
But you know, I love it. I love it that fans
the
are
passion.
passionate. But I just thought, like, McDougall played a solid game. The whole team played a strong game. And that was my first time seeing Jonas back. And Schmitty, like, was just so
chomping at the
calm.
bit.
It would a pickup, you know, for Clarkey and Nick.
Well,
to
and
get
and we
in.
understood that when we read that they picked up Schmidt again, and it's just one of those things where it's a very calculated pickup because you know you're going to need the support to support Lou, to support, you know, Schooley had another great game.
Yep.
These guys are the leaders of the team. And they understand. But one thing I will say going out to St. Mary's to a hockey game is the buzz
Oh, my God.
in the Pyramid Center.
Yes.
And I love it. You know, we know a lot of people between you and I, Chess, and even Jonathan there from the shop.
Yeah.
But it's a friendly hello. It's you felt very welcomed, and I wasn't expecting like we were stepping into Philadelphia. But it was really great. It was great to see. We saw Magraz. We saw a bunch of
the Irish
people that we know. Like Mo and Grasby and all those guys.
Yep.
I really enjoyed it.
It was
really
a great
enjoyed the night.
Great hockey.
Great hockey, and I can't believe that neutral zone in St. Mary's. I can't believe it.
It is, folks. For those of you that have never been to the Pyramid Center, I'm not exaggerating. It feels like the neutral zone is like 10 feet top. No, I'm exaggerating.
No, what
obviously.
is it? Is Chess told us it was like I think it's 6 to 8 feet shorter either way. Like it's a whole.
It's ridiculous.
I don't know how they do it.
And what I don't understand is why every spring when they take the ice out, why the arena manager goes, you know what, we should probably fix this, because I guarantee, like even on power plays, the defense are 10 feet inside the blue line because it's that far out. And they could move the blue line towards the goal nets 10 feet both ends just to make it more realistic, because that is by far the smallest neutral zone that we have in the whole league. But it's unfortunate that they have that. But hey, both teams had to abide by those rules, and so it is what it is. Are we on?
Absolutely. I hope so.
Okay. Maybe just double
Les
check.
is sending me stuff.
Yeah. But, the game was good. Stratford.
Yeah, we're good.
Stratford had a strong first period. They get a late penalty in the last minute, or with a minute and change to go in the game, and the referee had to call it. It was a tripping penalty, purely accidental. And it was right in front of one of the referees. And so Stratford the referees had to call the penalty on Stratford. And I'm telling you, like, you want to see a power play, holy moly. Like, St. Mary's is lights out with their power play, wouldn't you say?
Well, I look at St. Mary's, and there's a lot that comes to mind, one of which is they're front runners. They're front runners.
They are setting the bar.
Big. They are strong. They are calculated. They are seasoned.
Yep.
They have veterans. They have everything. And with picking up the Saginaw first overall pick from a few years ago,
Yeah, that
more
doesn't hurt.
they're just right dialed in, but they're all in this year, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. They just on their power play. So Stratford gets a penalty.
Yeah.
And the defenseman, and that was a set play. You got Spagnuolo going to the net, and the defenseman lets a hard wrist shot along the ice go. Did it hit his skate? Did it hit his stick? It doesn't matter. He didn't direct it with his skate, so it was a good goal no matter. McDougall had no chance on that first power play goal at the end of the first period. And I just thought, man, Stratford has played such a great first period. They controlled the play with a couple of breaks. Like there was one time where Marshall was in front of, how do you say it? Armelin?
Yeah.
And he just couldn't corral it. It hit his skate or his stick and bounced up. And it was just stuff like that. And I'm not taking anything away from St. Mary's because they are by far the front runners. They've pushed their chips all in. But a couple of breaks and Stratford could have been up a couple of goals.
Well, and it's true. And I really think that St. Mary's that night had our goalie shutting the door for a lot of different reasons. But the one thing that I did see with Stratford's game is it was very heavy. It was good. It was solid. It was sound. But what they weren't doing was getting in close, getting players in front of the net to cloud the view of the goalie. And I think that was ultimately the difference. Now Schmidt, who we talked about, he's exactly what they were looking for.
Right.
You know, a few shifts they had Schmidt, Schooley, and was it Hodge? Maybe Les would know. And sorry that we don't know the exact players, but you know they were going in. They were getting it done.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really hard when you have such a veteran team like St. Mary's and you're playing your best. And I believe that was some of Stratford's best hockey. I just do. I'm not saying it's not good enough, but some things have to go different.
Well, you're missing Cole.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Stratford would have won the game, but
No.
it would have been a totally different game.
It's a different element.
It's a different.
With
It'd be
your
like
captain
It'd be like as Chess calls them, the Milton Magicians with Lee and Spagnolo, missing one of those two guys.
Yeah.
And it was just unfortunate, but like I said earlier, you know, we need Louis healthy for the playoffs because that is going to be it's going to be a heavy heavy
a
run.
luxury you have in a small arena like that is we were standing down by the rink and you know, you look down and there's Lou walked over and it just said, you know, I don't mean to bother you, but how's things? And he goes, oh, it's going to be a little bit. I said, okay, well, now you know.
Yeah.
And you're going to be ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the thing that I feel but I feel for him because he might be ready for the playoffs, but he's missing the last couple weeks of his final tenure in Junior B. And he's been so influential. He's, you know, Razor, we say this so often, but I will say this about Cole Lewis. He's such a good kid.
Great kid.
He's
great family.
He's just Stratford boy, you know, and those things mean just a little bit more. We have great talent on that team.
Mm-hmm.
We have great people who are coming, but you know, a guy like Lou, who's in his last, you know, chapter here, you want him in the game, and you know he's pissed that he's sitting out, right?
Like you just look at St. Mary's' experience. Like they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got 8 OHL drafted players on their team. Like you aren't going to match them. Like, so Stratford obviously knows they aren't going to match them with the experience, and they went out and got those guys at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story that, you know, Chester told us, you know, some crazy numbers that were thrown around for them to get
Financially.
right. And so kudos to Stratford, you know, for sticking to their guns. And
I think Stratford played a great game.
100.
I do.
If Stratford is going to end up knocking off St. Mary's, which, you know, let's just say hypothetically they meet up in the finals, they are going to have to they are not going to want to get into a run and gun with those guys.
No.
They're going to want to frustrate them. They're going to want to capitalize on their chances, and I like our chances.
Well, Razor, we saw the 4-2 back in Stratford, right?
Yeah.
So that's Junior B hockey, right? These are when I say this, I say it respectfully. They're amateur players.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. But what happens is the momentum that happens in these games, and you saw it in St. Mary's.
Right.
Stratford ruled that first period, and we're going, holy, okay, well, this is good news.
Yep.
And then St. Mary's came out with their great hockey that they're capable of.
Yes.
Everybody was rolling.
Yes.
You know, and kudos to St. Mary's and full credit to St. Mary's. They're a great hockey team.
Yeah, they really are.
But with the way Stratford played Saturday night, I was okay with that.
100.
You played well and you lost.
Like if you just look at the box score and they lost 4-1, you're thinking that they got outplayed and didn't show up that night. That couldn't be further from the truth. The effort was there. The fight was there. They just didn't get the breaks.
They were finishing checks. They were hard on the puck. They were, you know, with the assignments on the plays. They were doing all that.
And I remember when Marshall got hit in the first period? And we're all like looking at each other, and then like the kid is like as tough as nails, and he was like a rock star for the rest of the game. Like, and obviously he felt that, like, because we were all looking at each other going, oh my god, oh my God. And, the guy ended up just, I think it looked worse than it really was, the hit at center
Yeah.
ice. But kudos to Marshy for, dusting himself off and,
Yeah.
and just continuing throughout the game. And I loved it with Petrie. Like, their fight, even though they were down 4-0, they didn't give up. Like, they still had that fight, and they wanted to break the
I think of the
goose
word
egg.
tenacity.
Yeah.
With Stratford, that whole game, and the second and third period were a lot different than the first.
Yes.
But I really think that the everything was still there. Everything was still there.
Yep.
A bounce here, a bounce there. It was reffed very well,
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah.
There was nothing crazy that happened there. It was just two teams, and I'm not saying that Stratford fell short. I'm just saying it was just one of those games.
It was just a night where things didn't go your way.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you would know that, and I'm just saying,
100.
like, as a goalie,
Yep.
things just
100.
You got a bounce here and a bounce there, and don't kid yourself. St. Mary's is heavy.
They're legit.
Very legitimate.
Like and like I said, McDougall played a good game. It wasn't his fault that they lost the game, and that's all you ask of your goalies. Give us a good game.
Yeah.
Give us a chance to win the game.
Yeah, like, I don't think there's any way they go in after the game and Willie goes, "This is nuts."
No.
But they
And
played hard.
They played hard.
Really hard.
They just did not get the breaks.
Les is saying, congratulations, Joe Curtin, on your first Go HL goal.
Oh, nice.
So he's been easy steady there, and
Yeah, he got that
I think
Friday
Campbell
night.
was out, so there's that. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse, but that was just another part of the puzzle where there was a few people missing. You take out Cole Lewis, you
Yes.
take out Campbell on defense,
Yep.
who is playing with Curtin 90% of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, 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 blah. Good win by St. Mary's.
Good win. They're locked. They've got first locked up.
Yep.
I would hope because there's just so much movement between second and sixth or seventh. Like, there's only a couple of points
Yeah,
separating
just like
everyone.
the Atlantic Division
Right.
in the NHL.
Yeah, and I hope that Stratford can get enough W's to end up in second.
Yeah.
So, not that you want to, we can beat these guys. It's just, let's face it, folks, facts are facts. St. Mary's, on paper, and most nights, are going to be your toughest
100%.
opponent. If you can meet them in the league final, which would happen if Stratford ends up in second,
Yeah.
would be ideal.
Yep.
If you're going to meet them, not that you hope that anybody gets hurt, but you hope that maybe
Well,
they
you're
have
beaten down a little bit.
right.
Yeah.
If they ended up having to go through a London who doesn't mind duking it
Yeah.
up, and
Yeah.
that would be a terrible matchup, I would think, for St. Mary's,
Yeah.
right?
Well, Chatham, London.
Right.
Well, Clarkey said it on here
Yes.
before. There's no ideal setup.
there really isn't.
No.
Chatham, run and gun, let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a great goalie. Like, there's no good team
No.
that you want to focus on to play against. But I just hope that when Stratford gets into the playoffs, that hopefully maybe they run into some teams that don't want to play, a heavy style,
100%.
and they can just not get many injuries, because that's going to be huge.
Right.
When you match up against St. Mary's in a 7-game series, you better have all hands on deck, because they're that good.
Yeah.
And they're nice gentlemen. We saw a bunch of them up in the Blue Line Club after the game, and I just
100%.
I
Great hospitality for
100.
the Pyramid Center.
Yeah,
I
really good.
loved. I've been to 2 games there.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
The sense of community, the sense of the support for the team, the sense of the fans, the dedication, everything from the 50-50 to the announcer to what's the radio guy?
Spencer.
Spencer.
Yeah,
It's all there.
yeah. Yeah.
The little engine that could. St. Mary's,
519
Ontario.
was there.
Good.
Like it was
fantastic.
it was a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
It really was.
It was fun to be there, and thank you for that. It was fantastic.
No, it was great, and I just if my only recommendation is that when the Lincolns know the Armchair Chirpers are coming, maybe a few Millie Lights to get us talking good about their team might not be a bad thing, but
We didn't get one.
no, I don't think they had. No, they didn't have Miller
Sons of
Lite. They didn't have our
bitches.
brand.
No, they
there,
had
so
Bud Light.
They had Bud Light.
It
but-
drinks as shit. All right.
Folks, I think that's pretty much it. It's been a great show. We appreciate once again Paul Barton and Dan Forget for coming on.
Yeah.
I think we have another great cast coming on. Former ex-Cullens. We've got one that I think for sure. He's just talking to somebody else. I don't want to say who they are yet, but our February 3rd show is going to be a dandy. So tune into that one. And the shows leading up to February 10th are going to be probably Junior B related.
So let's just preface February 10th and what's going to happen. Have a good swig.
Well, from what I understand, and we were talking off camera there, off mic. Well, I last said the mics were still on, but we can't say enough thank yous to the 5 that are going through volunteering their time to come up with the 50 folks. Please don't criticize when this list comes up. Oh, this guy should have been on it. You know what? It's easy to point the fingers, but when hands were going up about who wanted to do this, I didn't see a whole lot of hands go up.
So Les did comment, and there's 9 on the committee. John Kastner,
9. Okay.
Steve Rice, Eddie Matthews, Wendell Archer, Dan Matheson, Jason Clark, the General, and somehow Les slipped in there.
Wow. Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. He's been a lifelong fan and deserves to be on the committee. But, so there's going to be a lot of, I won't say a lot, but there's going to be some people scratching their heads going, why not this? Why not that? It's such a gray example of what they're going to do. So when Les gets back next week, we're going to ask him a little bit more about the process. And I don't think necessarily, from what I understand, Razor, that it's going to be an absolute top 50. I think they've had to not dilute it, but divide it into different categories, different style of hockey, different era of hockey, different players, reasons why. I mean, you're not getting Nelson Emerson in here at 17 years old anymore. He's already gone somewhere else because of the options that they have. So
yeah, and the work that those guys have put in to come up with a list of 50 people. I know a lot of people are going, oh, I can't wait to hear, who the top 5 and the number 1 player of all time is. We've got to get some clarification from some of the other guys on the committee, because obviously you and I aren't on that committee. Yeah. But folks, I don't think we're just grateful that these 9 people.
Can I be honest, Razor? I don't think I'd want to be on the committee. Like it's so tough.
It's very labor intensive.
Yeah.
And it's thankless because you're always going to have the trolls, spew off about, oh, this guy shouldn't be on it. I played with this guy should be. You know what? Like I said, put your hand up and volunteer for the next 50, in 50 years if you're still around. But I'm just grateful that all of those guys that you named took time out of their busy life
100%.
to even participate in this. And so we'll get clarification, but early indications are saying it's not going to be like a top, this guy was number 1. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be more because each guy was given a decade from what I understand. Yep. So,
and we'll get, like I say, more clarification from less faders, and you know what? We sending out well wishes to Les. Get well soon. Just sick.
Get well soon.
Nothing wrong, but just sick, and I'm sick and tired of running this. I don't know what the hell it is, but
Les, all those times we've said negative things that you haven't been able to get the board going, we take it all back. So,
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's all good, buddy.
1 in a million.
Get well soon, and folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for following
Doing
us
great.
on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook. I know we don't use our Twitter and TikTok accounts a whole lot.
But I know one thing that's important to this podcast is it's okay not to be okay. Just start the conversation.
Absolutely.
Quote unquote less faders. So missing you tonight, bud, and we'll see you next time. And thank you.
No problem.
Ciao, guys.
Cheers.
Wayward mind, lovesick blind.